Good morning all. Welcome to another installment of me trying to read spooky books for Spooky October. So inadvertently, which is a great word by the way, we should use inadvertently more. This has become short story reading month because I just don't have that many novels that I haven't read recently and which qualify in the spooky region. So, as you will know from the thumbnail, this October has been my re-entry into the world of Stephen King. I don't think I've reviewed a single Stephen King on this channel, possibly one of the Bachman books, and yes, I know the Bachman books are Stephen King. But it's been a long time since I read much Stephen King, and the only one I have here at the moment is this set of short stories, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which, as you can see, there's certain reasons why I didn't start it. Now, before I delve into the ones I have read, do you like my best spooky painting here? It's the only one I've done which could be nominally spooky, so I thought this would be my October showcase. Let me know in the comments if you despise it and you think I should put down my paintbrushes for good. Sometimes when I look at that one, I think that myself, so I won't be offended. Okay, Stephen King. Problem with short stories is how short they are, and if you read fast, and I do, they're gone too fast, and 20 minutes out of your 1 hour reading time in the evening is gone. What are you going to do? You start another short story, and next thing you know, they all blur together in your mind, and you're trying to get through the whole novel, and I just get annoyed. With this book, what I've done is I've done a less scientific way of starting. I didn't start here. Instead, I just went like this, pretty much, until a line or two caught my fancy and I started reading. And the first one that caught my fancy was Popsy, a story that starts on page 154. So, Popsy starts with our protagonist, I guess, if you will. He's some ordinary guy. He's outside a mall somewhere in America called Cousinland, I think it's called. And it's quite clear that our main protagonist, he's not a nice guy. He's looking for a kid to snatch. And we find out that he's an inveterate gambler. He's got into so much debt that he's about to have nasty things broken off him, or he's given the option of snatching kids for money. Now, he doesn't do anything horrible to the kids. He doesn't know what is done to them. He's kind of learnt not to ask. He still thinks of himself as not a bad guy, just a normal guy in a bad situation. And at the beginning of this story, he comes across a small kid, about 6'5". When he first sees it, he thinks it's a well-grown 3, but as he approaches, he's going, no, it's a scrawny 6. And he's standing there looking around. This kid is obviously lost. It's adult. And it's scared and miserable, and it started to cry as he moves up. And you've got this beautiful, evocative Stephen King visual of a small kid standing in a mall all alone, surrounded by strangers and big things. And the neon light glints in his tears as he starts to cry, turning them slightly pinkish. But we, the sophisticated readers, know that this might not just be the neon lights. Our protagonist doesn't. He approaches the kid, he kidnaps him into his van, and he starts driving him to the dealer who will purchase him for quite a lot of money. This kid is incredibly strong. He's been handcuffed to the van, and he starts to bend the handle that he's been cuffed to, bending the metal that our protagonist knows he himself welded onto that van and is strong. So we have all these hints that the kid who has lost his Popsy and keeps saying that Popsy will be very angry and Popsy is very strong. We, the readers, are sort of strung out like chewing gum, stretched, because we know and we see all the hints that obviously the protagonist doesn't. No spoiler, this does not end well for a protagonist, and we meet Popsy. This story, the first Stephen King that I've read for ages, really reminded me why Stephen King used to be such a go-to for me. and why so many people adore his writing. It's very justifiable. What Stephen King does is many, many things at the same time. And this reasonably short story, I can't remember how many pages is it. It's, how many pages is it? Oh, really short. It's only about 10 or so pages. In it, we have so much happening. We've got the main protagonist. We know him from the inside of his head. He himself is a bit of a horror show, but thinks of himself as normal. Which reminds me of a great scene in one of my Dark Horse comics where someone says to Death, "You like everyone, even the creepy ones?" And Death says, "Inside their heads, they're not creepy. Sometimes they're sad, and sometimes they're lonely, and sometimes they think they're the only person in the world, but they're not creepy." Anyhow, that is what Stephen King does in this story. He creates our protagonist from the inside, and on the inside he isn't creepy. He does think himself normal. He is sorry for the kid, but not normal levels of empathy. So you've got this individual who is himself a horror story, and then you've got the kid. There's obviously something a bit off in that woodshed. And yeah, you've got all those different things happening, and you've got that slow build up towards the final end. Now what I probably should do here is stop, say thank you for watching, and do the next story separately, because otherwise it's going to be hard for me to remember them. But I'm not. It's a 2-for-1. Sorry, Right Number was my second one from this book. So I'm going to read the author's note for this one, because this is written as a play. A movie play, specifically. Author's note. Screenplay abbreviations are simple and exist, in this author's opinion, mostly to make those who write screenplays feel like Lodge Brothers, which I loved. In any case, you should be aware that CU means close-up, ECU means extreme close-up, INT means interior, EXT means exterior, BG means background, POV means point of view. Probably most of you knew all that stuff to begin with, right? No, Stephen, I did not. I did know POV. I think everyone in the world knows POV today, but I didn't know any of the rest of that. And in actual fact, because this is a fairly long page count of a story, being, you know, a play, I actually had one finger highlighting this so I could flick back and forth when I suddenly had a CU thrown at me and couldn't remember what it was. So that introduction, author notes, was very much appreciated. I also don't read plays very often, and I don't love plays. I want to love plays, but unless there's actors reading them out to me, I find them difficult to read. Very difficult to read. However, so this is both the second Stephen King that I've read in however long, and probably the first play that I've read in a year or two. And I really, really enjoyed it. I was astonished. Once again, Stephen King, he hates that sweet spot. The simplicity of what he's written here means that in my own head, I can supply those visuals quite adequately that would be supplied by the camera. And the conversational gambits that he takes here also mean that I was hooked really very fast into this story and went along the whole way. So we start off with Katie. It's a fade in, which I can certainly imagine for myself. Katie Weideman's mouth, ECU. And then I had to check to see that ECU is extreme close-up, because I have no memory. I have goldfish memory. Or worse, goldfish have good memory. Blah. Anyway, Katie's speaking into the telephone, and she's chatting to her sister. And then we zoom in on the telephone itself, which shows that you've got lighted buttons, old school telephone, you know, receiver you lift up, cord attaching to phone sort of thing. Really old school. Who even remembers those these days? So she's talking to her, and another call comes in. And meanwhile, we've got 3 kids fighting over the television, where the youngest wants to watch a horror and no one else wants to. We find out one girl's away in college, and then we find out that the husband is a writer. He writes horror. He's in the study in the meantime. He comes out with the youngest boy. And Katie puts her sister on hold to take the second call, and it's someone crying so hysterically she can't understand. She's certain it's her daughter who's away at college or school or whatever they call it. But when they ring Polly, she's just fine. So Katie rings around all the females of her family, not knowing what's happening, and finally she decides it must be her younger sister living on a remote property. So they drive out there, and this is a Stephen King book, right? So the whole time we're sort of on the edge of our seat waiting for the thing to happen, because we know there's going to be a thing that happens. When's it going to happen? And actually this play system of writing is very adequate for that, because you have no sense of time in the way that I would have a sense of time reading a normal book as to when something's likely to happen or what it's likely to be. So there's got a lot of suspense. Once again, Stephen King does that thing where he fast and easily and with complexity gives you characters that are meaningful. And you may not know everything about Katie by page 3, but you know enough about her to make her a real visual character that you can surf the story with. So this one, if you haven't read it and you think you're going to and you don't want spoilers, probably stop now. Actually, no. Stop. While my hand is up, there will be spoilers. Spoilers. I warned you, spoilers. Okay, so after having done a circuit of all the females of the family, Katie desperately decides she was wrong. Life goes on. The next morning, her husband Bill is found dead of heart attack in his study near his word processor where he writes stories. And then we flick forward to 5 years later when Katie, remarried, has a sobbing episode and dials the old number on the phone that she had when Bill was still alive and connects to herself. So yes, the sobbing, hysterical woman on the phone is one of her own. It's her in the future. So that's a great story ending. And I really have got nothing to argue with in this story. The pacing, the characters, the dynamics of it are great. There's only one thing I want to say. On page 509, I got a bit of a rude shock when Stephen King writes that Katie's pretty pony has run a lot of miles in the last 5 years. I mean, I don't know. I know some Americans watch this channel. Does pretty pony mean nah? That can't. Tell me what you think this pretty pony is, because it can't possibly be what I think it is. So, yeah, that puzzled me. Stephen King always has his little puzzlements, but he always makes up for them. So yes, I'd like to say that I'd get back into Stephen King and read more Stephen King, but Stephen King is one of those books that has vanished from the second-hand shelves in a big way, and they're not small books. So I'll certainly read more stories from here. That's 2 down, more to go. Onward into October and the short stories. Who knows what awaits next? Thank you very much for watching. Read good books or read good short stories. I never thought I'd hear myself say that. Just read good stuff.